Okay, so John, how do I get to pronounce your surname?
The last name is pronounced Oughton.
Oughton.
Yes.
Wow, beautiful, beautiful. This is your pre-recording moment. I'm glad we can have this session right now. So, how do you feel?
Oh, pretty good. And here I am doing an exciting new technological adventure.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Well, you're welcome to the podcast, the One Student, One Book, One Author Mantra, the ultimate podcast that is designed to use your good office and authority as an author to inspire and help motivate a committed reader out of every global person, especially the girl child. I'm so thrilled to have you on this session.
Thank you.
So, well, I'd like you to tell us about yourself.
Okay, I'll try to keep it brief. I'm from originally a small city called Guelph in Ontario, Canada. And I grew up one block away from John McCrae's birthplace. He's the person who wrote In Flanders Fields the Poppies Grow, which is probably the most famous war poem and the reason why everyone wears poppies on Remembrance Day in the West. Anyway, so I went to university, York University, where I studied with a bunch of writers. I had a career in corporate communications, writing newsletters and things like that, and freelanced for a while as a journalist. And then finally I became a college teacher and I taught English at community colleges. And then for the last 10 years of my career, I trained new faculty. So I worked with them on their teaching skills, which is a great job because I didn't have to mark armloads of essays anymore. I go in and, help them and go home and do something else.
Wow. Beautiful. Go on.
Yeah, I've written, 8 books, 6 poetry, 1 mystery novel called Death by Triangulation, and a book about how to teach higher education based on what I learned training new faculty. So that's kind of my literary career. I also write a lot of reviews and articles in the past, which are for various periodicals and things.
Wow. It seems you've been doing a whole lot so far. The book ministry and creativity is concerned.
Yes, I think so.
So I like to ask you, what drives you? What's your inspiration? Because the journey into authorhood should be a very demanding one, from the writing to trying to see how you can weave your readers alongside your writing. I think it's a tsunami and a cumbersome task, but I know something drives you. So I'd like you to share your inspiration with our audience.
I think basically, all humans need to communicate with other humans, and writing is one way I found that I can do that, and it also allows me to share, some of my tastes, some of my thoughts, some of my fantasies. I was trying to explain to someone who didn't much like poetry what I thought poetry was, and I said, imagine this. Imagine for a minute you're going to remember all the things that flash through your mind, memories, fantasies, hearing something, seeing something, a bit of music. Now you're going to weave that into a poem that will be of interest to other people and kind of give them access to what it's like inside your head. And he went, oh, okay.
Yeah. Beautiful. So, it seems that for a greater part of your life, like, you've been this intentional and lifelong learner.
Oh, I would say so. Yeah, I think if you stop learning, you basically start to die inside. You might still have a good time, but you're not learning anything new. You're not challenging yourself very much. And I like to do that.
Wow. So, talking about challenges, how you tackle challenges. What were the books that made you finally decide to be like it like click for you to become a lifelong learner. And the books that have helped you through the hurdles, the blogs, the obstacles, for you as a kid, for you as a teen, till this particular moment, the current lifestyle you're leading. Like, I imagine the books you
Okay.
were reading this far. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you're talking about books that are important in my past rather than ones I'm reading right now, I think.
Yeah, yeah, all of them from your past to till this very moment. I think
Okay.
they kind of have a relationship. Like,
Hmm. All right.
yeah,
Well, I'll start with the books that first really got me into reading as a child. And like many children of my age, I was read Winnie the Pooh and Wind in the Willows, classic children's books. And, they're full of talking animals who basically act like humans,
yeah,
but they're moles or, they're stuffed animals, whatever. And that to me was wonderful that you could construct a story about animals who acted like people. So those were a couple of the books that really sort of started me reading. Of course, at first I was just listening, and then I started to be able to read the letters myself. And then the book that really captured my imagination was Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson, which is a classic pirate story. And in fact, it was used as a text in public schools for a while in Canada. It just really grabs your imagination and it keeps you going. You don't want to stop it. It's a kind of book that
wow,
when your parents tell you you have to turn out the light and go to bed, you pull the sheets over your head and use a flashlight so you can keep reading the book.
wow, wow,
Okay, and then
wow,
another one that really influenced my thinking and still does was Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance by Robert Pirsig. Now, that's a strange title. And in
yeah,
fact, the book is sort of a combination of philosophy and biography and fiction. And he had a really hard time getting it published. I think something like 130 publishers turned it down because they couldn't figure out what it
wow,
was. And finally, one accepted. And it's sold over 1 million copies. But anyway, the importance to me is it's a book about thinking about how you think and the assumptions you make, and realizing that, for example, if there's something not working in your house or your car that's bothering you, sure, you can pay someone else to do it,
yeah,
but you can also sit down, and now we have YouTube videos, and figure out how to do it yourself, and
yeah,
so tackle the small things in your life as well as the big things, like, as I said, what you think about, how you believe, what you're willing to do to, keep learning and so forth.
yeah,
And lately, I've been reading. I always read mystery books for fiction, and I love mysteries that are set in other cultures. Like Tony, trying to remember his name. I want to say Hillerman, who wrote a
yeah,
series of wonderful stories set in the Big Navajo Reservation in the Southwest USA, and his characters are Navajo policemen who solve mysteries. And both they're great stories, but he really does a good job, I think, of transmitting the culture, the way of thinking that I found really interesting. And then lately, I've been reading books that take some of the current theories in science about how the universe started and how big the universe is and what's the relation between time and space. And those really fire my imagination. And some of the poems in my latest book are actually based on some of those ideas from quantum theory. A good example of a book like that I would like to read again soon, it's called The Universe in Your Hand by an
wow,
Italian scientist. I think his name is Carlo Rutelli, and he explains in everyday terms what some of these very strange and complicated ideas mean. And I found that pretty valuable. And then, of course, the Bible. I mean, I'm not particularly religious, and I don't know that I would call myself a Christian, but so much of my culture is based on the Bible and quotes from the Bible. That you
wow,
need to know it. You need to know those stories, and you need to recognize that, Jesus, as well as his many other gifts, was actually a rebel. He spoke out against society, he spoke out against wealth and prejudice and things like that. And that's a valuable lesson for anyone, whether you choose to go to a Christian church or not, I think. Um,
Wow.
and then I don't know if I'm up to 10 yet. I think you said 10 books when we talked earlier, but one more would be Ulysses by James Joyce. Now, that's a very big and complicated book, and a lot of people never finish it. But I did my degrees in English literature, and when I read the book, I realized that not only is he telling a story about these characters living in Dublin in the early 20th century, he's also echoing or making fun of a lot of the previous literary writing in English, using words from
Yeah.
those times.
Yeah.
It's full of references. So I've read that book maybe 4 or 5 times, and for me, it's entertainment. I know for other people that would be punishment.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Wow. You're so cumbersome. Like you passed for a room full of books.
Hmm.
I'm thrilled, Otto John, to have you on this podcast. I'm so thrilled. Now,
Thank you.
ask you, being a teacher for a longer number of years, what would you say about how your reading lifestyle had helped change or help shape the you in the classroom, like the you in the school system? How do you think the reading lifestyle had helped you foster that rapport? How was it able to help you also pass the light on to other young people to help them become lifelong learners? Tell me about your experience
But
as a
that's a great
teacher.
question.
Thank you.
One thing I would say is because I often did teach courses that were about writing, not just creative writing, but also like, how to write for accountancy, how to write for business, how to write if you're an auto technician. Having that kind of library stored in my mind meant it was easy for me to find examples that would get their interest, that would sort of connect with them. Like you talk about wealth and business. Well, The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald is a kind of tragic story about a guy who's very successful in business but can't make sense of his own life. He doesn't really know how to handle relationships, how to
Yeah,
handle other people. So I would
yeah,
pull that up as an example, and then of course sometimes I would read them bits that I thought would connect with them, kind of try to inspire them, or sometimes just entertain them. Something funny is a great way to start a class off and relax people. One of the things I used to tell new teachers is don't get down to business right away. Like don't start the first minute talking about what's on your weekly outline. Spend a little time to get to know your readers or your
yeah,
students, and you might be
yeah,
amazed.
yeah,
So one
yeah.
time I gave new students a questionnaire. They were all studying physiotherapy, and I was trying to teach them how to write essays. And I said, "Tell me what you like to read." And a lot of it was like, what you might expect: romance or graphic novels or detective stories. But one young woman said, "Oh, I like to read the ancient Greek tragedies like Sophocles and Aeschylus." And I went, "Wow." And so
Wow.
later on, when things came up in the class, I would ask her, "Can you find an echo in a play?" And she would say, "Yeah, in this particular play, this guy was in love with his mother, and here's what happened," and on you go.
Wow, wow. You had an amazing time in the classroom.
sometimes,
So
sometimes it was hard work, but sometimes those connections happen.
yeah, yeah. Being a teacher, you're responsible for a greater number of future. And I think that should have been your motivation to become an author. So here's the point where I'd like you to talk about your books, talk about how we can find your books. Are you a social media kind of pal? Are you an
Hmm.
author? Your community savers? Just let us know how to click on your books, share, review, read them, and get to be your friends.
Hmm. Okay. Well, first of all, you can find me on social media. I'm on Facebook, and if you send me a friend request, and don't just send me the request, send me a little message saying why you want to connect. If you're into writing and reading, I'll accept you as a friend, and then we can exchange things that way. I'm on Instagram, so if you look my name up, John Oughton, there aren't many people with that last name. Mostly I post my photography on there, not so much about writing. And I'm on LinkedIn. And I also have a YouTube channel, but a lot of that one is I'm also a guitar player. So I post little videos to help other people with their guitar playing. But some of it is literary too. So about my books, the book that just came out, it's just a couple of months old, is called The Universe and All That. And it's my latest collection of poetry. And there's kind of three themes in it. One is the one I already mentioned about trying to make sense of modern science, especially physics, about what they're saying about the universe and space and time. I think those things are certainly worth thinking about. Another section is poetry inspired by visual art, where I look at a painting or a sculpture, a photograph or something, and respond to it. What does it say to me? What does it suggest to me? And then the remaining third are just the usual things that tend to inspire poets. I walk around my neighborhood a lot. I live along Lake Ontario in Toronto. I see strangers. I see what they're doing. I think about that. I write about that. Sometimes there's a news item that sparks me and gets me going. And I'm open. I believe poetry has the right to be funny as well as serious and romantic and lyrical and all those things. So one of the poems is about this news item I read. In Australia, a wild pig or a boar somehow got hold of a whole case of Foster's beer, drank it all, and then got into a fight with a cow. And I thought, well, that deserves a poem. It doesn't all have to be about love and relationships. So that's my latest poetry book. Now, my novel, Death by Triangulation, is a mystery novel about the assassination of John F. Kennedy. But the character involved in it is kind of like me. He's a poet who rides a motorcycle, which I used to do. And he does cultural cases that have to do with art or music or literature. He gets involved in this because an eccentric older writer has died, and his family, who is rich, is trying to prevent a scandal. So they want this guy to find out what the old man was up to and, suppress any evidence of wrongdoing. And that's how he gets involved. So that was fun. I must say, writing a novel is the hardest piece of writing I've done, because you have to create a long story with variations. You have to keep track of everything. So if some character dies in chapter 3, he's not alive again in chapter 8. But anyway, that was entertaining. And then my teaching book, it's called Higher Teaching, a handbook for new post-secondary teachers, is just full of practical ideas about how to make classes work, how to deal with groups, how to deal with difficult students, how to put some variety in your lessons so you get students engaged rather than boring them all the time. So most of my books that are still in print, the novel and the teaching book, you can find on Amazon. The other one is available from the publisher. That's The Universe and All That, my poetry book. The publisher is Ecstasis Editions in Victoria, and Ecstasis is spelled Ekstasis. Or if you have a local bookstore, they may be able to order it. You just need my name and the title, and they'll find it. So I have earlier poetry books, but some of them are out of print, and I'd like you to focus on the new ones, because that's how I'm going to make my first $1 million.
Wow, beautiful. I love your line of thought. I like to say congratulations already. Congratulations.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, also John, here's the point where I like you to talk about the importance of reading, looking at all the dump war in the globe right now,
Yes.
the ignorance. So what would you think would be the importance of reading, especially for the next generation, the younger generation, the toddlers? How do we get to let them know that reading, becoming a lifelong learner, is just the way forward for every manner of person?
Well, I agree. And again, that's a great question. So first of all, I would say reading is a way to find alternatives, to see other possibilities, other ways of making things work. Like maybe you don't like the government you're stuck with in your country. Well, how else can a country be run to have better distribution of wealth, to help people who are poor, to help people who have medical needs. You can look
Yeah.
at other books about other countries, or you can look at more general ideas like, what's the importance of free speech and democracy? Why do people keep harping on the need for those? Well, because it lets everyone participate in the creating of a better world. And then the other one I would say, and I've noticed this in my own reading, is each of us grows up in a certain background, a certain culture, and that's what we know. But one way to find out, as well as traveling, which is a great education, and I recommend it, I've done a fair amount of it. One way to find out is to read books written by people from other cultures, other backgrounds. Like when I was, I guess, finishing high school, I read a novel by James Baldwin, the Black American author, and he was
Yeah.
also gay. And to me, neither of those identities had much resonance for me simply because I hadn't been there. But his novels, like Giovanni's Room and
Yeah.
what is it, Fire on the Mountain, really make you understand what it feels like to be a black gay man in a society that doesn't want you, basically, that oppresses you,
Yeah.
that tries to silence you. So I think reading is a great way to build empathy, to realize that, I'm in Canada, people in Africa deal with many of the same problems and experience much of the same things I have, but through the mirror and the lens of a different culture and a different
Wow.
language. So, if
Wow.
people could get more empathy and think more about the political systems they're living in and do something about it, the world would become a better place.
Wow. 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 Also, John, I'm thrilled. I'm so thrilled.
I'm
Wow.
glad.
So I am obviously imagining, trying to imagine your favorite authors and your favorite books. I'm
Hmm.
just trying to imagine who would make that list.
Trying to imagine what? Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Well, I'm trying to imagine who would be your best set of authors, and I'm trying to imagine who would make, as in the names on those lists. So I don't know if you'd like to tell us about your favorite authors.
Well, I'll tell you about a couple. I mentioned James Joyce, and I still think he's a great fiction writer. My favorite
Yeah.
poet remains William Butler Yeats, the Irish poet, who kind of bridged between the romantic poetry of the 19th century, which tended to rhyme, and but then as he moved into the 20th century, he was not only moving past always rhyming, but he wrote about Irish politics. He wrote about the world of the spirit. He wrote about being old and still feeling like a sexual being and wondering what to do about it. So I think he's there's many writers I like, but he's the poet that has influenced me the most, and I still
Wow.
dip into his work just because it's so wonderful.
Wow. 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 Author John Oughton, it's so nice to have you on the Global Readers Circle, the ultimate podcast that is designed to help make a committed reader out of every global person, especially the students. So, our audience globally, we've been on to John Oughton, a very great author from Ontario, Canada, an educator and a great poet. So, Arthur John, at this point, I like you to tell us what would you love to be remembered for? I mean, at the end of all the struggles, the strives, and the tribes, what would you love to be remembered for, Arthur John?
Well, I guess being kind to people, I try to do that and sometimes succeed. And my writing, I think that will stay on. I'm not a famous author. I've had some success in getting published, but I like to think that in 50 years or 100 years, somebody will pick up one of my books in some store and go, oh, I like that. Oh, that's interesting. I'm learning something from this. So that's
Wow,
kind of what I'm hoping for.
wow, wow. Arthur John, thank you very much. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. And we are on this part of the show where you would have to name 10 books from some of the amazing books. So you'll be going it one after the other, and we'll be counting it on you. 10 books that would probably stay with you for a longer time. So, are you ready for the challenge?
I will try. I already mentioned some, so I guess it's fair game to reuse
Fine,
those,
fine,
right?
fine. We've been talking about books, books, books. So, I'm sure that you're going to be very intentional this time and call out
Mhm.
from 10 books that have stayed with you. Are you ready, Otto John?
I will try.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, let's do this. Go.
Okay. Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. The House at
One,
Two Corners by A. A. Milne.
two,
Uh, Ulysses by James Joyce.
three,
Uh, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
four,
The Universe in Your Hand by I think it's Carla Rotelli.
five.
The Collected
Beautiful.
Poems of W.B. Yeats.
Six. Go on.
The Bible.
Seven. Beautiful.
Hamlet by William Shakespeare.
Wow. We have eight.
Skinwalkers by Tony Hillerman, a Navajo mystery.
Wow. Nine. Nine.
And
Beautiful.
The Universe and All That by John Oughton because I wrote it.
Wow, 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 wow. That's so beautiful, Otto John Oughton. It's been so very amazing to have you on the One Student, One Book, One Author mantra, the ultimate podcast designed to help make a committed reader out of every global person through your authority as an author. I'm so, so humbled to have you on this show. So before you
Thank you for
go,
inviting me. Yes.
thank you. Thank you. Before you go, what would be your last words to a young lad, a young girl who is stranded, who is lost, who is here to find their way, who is here to carve a niche for themselves? What would be your last word as an author to them?
Well, don't give up. Things are never hopeless, and somewhere out there are books that will help you. You know, that will show you other ways that will inspire you, or that will entertain you, and don't let anyone ever tell you you can't learn or you can't be a writer yourself. You can. Maybe you won't be a
Wow.
published writer, but you'll still learn from it, and you'll clarify your own thoughts in the process.
Wow, wow. Arthur John Octon, thank you very much for sharing your thought. It has been an amazing moment with you, and we look forward to have you on our global team. We look forward to have you on a mentor aboard as a role model. We look forward to have you come back on our shows, our webinars, and we're looking forward to achieve so much with you. It's been so very honored, a singular honor to be on this particular session with you. I'm thrilled.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me. I really enjoyed it.
All right. Thank you very much, Otto John. So it's been an amazing night with a very great poet and author, John Acton, Ontario, Canada. So I have been having my own me and a wow moment. So I hope that when you get to stream this, you don't forget to share it with your friends. You don't forget to like, follow, and engage on a special hashtag for the festivity. The books I read that stayed with me. And don't forget to look up books written by author John Acton on Amazon. And don't forget, I'll be adding the link this time. You can follow the link from the bio. So we look forward to have an amazing festivity of celebration. And yes to our victory, and yes to the book runners everywhere in the world. We are victorious people. It's been nice having Dr. John on the show, and it's been so amazing that we've had to discover his reading lifestyle, the books that stayed with him, and we are also looking forward to having back on our sessions, on our webinars, on our talk shows. And that will be all for now. But don't forget that it's a smashing month of December for everybody. It's been your host, Smart Stewart Udor, and I'm looking forward to have an amazing session with everybody globally. Okay, Arthur John, thank you very much. We come to the end of the show.
Thank you.